Hi, I'm Kelly.
And hi, I'm Geoff.
And this is Blueprints for Belonging, where we're exploring how to build conscious connection in a disconnected world.
Because belonging doesn't happen by accident, it
Nope.
happens by design.
Hey, everybody, we're here today with our guest, Brooke Summers Perry.
Hey, Brooke.
How are you today?
Hi, I'm well. Thank you.
Good. Well, I met Brooke. I met you many years ago when we did some practice groups together doing NVC practice groups. If you don't know what a practice group, that is when we just kind of get together and we share with each other what we're learning about how to use NVC skills, nonviolent communication skills. We would meet once a week or once every 2 weeks, and we would practice these skills with about 10 to maybe 20 people. It depends on how large the practice group was. And we would learn how to use them in a more efficient way than anybody ever could with learning how to use some communication skills. So it was really fun to do that. And then Brooke and I have played in the studio, and you made a catfish. Never, what do? We put a shopping bag and glued it to the catfish frame that we constructed. That was fun. And then now you are the woman to
Director of Education.
Director of Education. Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
At the Young Center here in Houston, Texas. So.
But the reason we're having Brooke here is because she created a group called We Practice Life.
What?
And so we want to talk to her about that.
We Practice Life. Wow.
Yeah,
so
such a great name.
Yeah, so what inspired you to come up with We Practice Life? How did that turn into the community that you... I mean, what is it to mean to practice life?
So, I think it probably really did come from the practice groups you and I met in, Kelly. Coming together with other people with a shared intention to improve their lives and the lives of others. We did that through nonviolent communication practice groups. And I think once I participated in that, I really longed for everything I learned to have a practice group attached to it. So whether it was the spiritual teachings of Dr. Bill Curley at St. Paul's and his Ordinary Life class, or any number of workshops that I went to here at the Jung Center or elsewhere, I, I would walk out of a lecture and long for the practice group. And so what happened was it became one of those things that catalyzes change is you get uncomfortable enough where you're willing to do something different or put a little effort in. That happened, and I just started creating practice groups, and they started in I call them, and some I might have heard this from somewhere else, but parking lot conversations. You walk out of a really juicy lecture and people start talking about what they're learning and they start reflecting on what it means for them and how they're going to apply it. And you find yourself standing around at your car door, not getting in the car because you're so amped up and you're so ready for it to have an effect on your life. Um, I would get in my car after that and want to have a follow-up practice group like we did with NVC. And so I just started asking other people if they wanted, to have a practice group. And I think probably because like Geoff, my background is in architecture and I worked in construction management. Kind of towards the end of my time in architecture, I was doing a lot of construction administration, which really gets you focused on next actions, right? If you can focus on the whole design of the project, but when it comes to implementing everything and building the thing, it's all about next actions and by when. And I had that framework for my life. So if I wanted to change my life, my brain automatically went into distilling and discerning from the content in a lecture how to operationalize it into a practice. Like, so taking the content and reshaping it into what's my next action. If I want to live in a new way because I know these new things, what's my next action? And then, the other thing in construction that's really tricky is that you don't stay on time and budget unless you're held accountable. So, so that was the other aspect about practice groups is that I noticed that we were holding each other accountable. And that's why, there's kind of like three things happening. You operationalize the content, you hold each other accountable, and then you learn from each other in whether what you're doing works or not, which is, I've also heard like recently, it's called leapfrogging. When you just,
Mm.
you don't, you don't take this linear path necessarily with your lessons. If you're in community, you get to learn from what everybody else is learning from,
Hmm.
and it just expedites the whole process. So, so really, we practice life. Um, it came out of a long arc of experimenting with these things with a lot of different people. And it took many different twists and turns. It took me to being the executive director of the Heinz Center for Spirituality and Prayer, where
Mm.
different groups popped up for different reasons. And then when I unexpectedly lost that job, it took me into the classroom in elementary classrooms
Mm-hmm.
and embedding some of these life skills and critical thinking skills and creativity into the creative writing classroom, into the art classroom. And so by the time our oldest son went to college in 2018, he he and I started walking together in the morning to get some exercise. And our conversation seemed to get deeper and deeper every time we walked until he he brought to me some pretty deep frustration about the college ethos and community. And he just said, "Mom, I don't get it. I don't know how to connect with people on this campus. It seems like the only way to get connection and belonging is to have a drinking
I
problem
know.
and to be a partier."
Right.
And he
Right.
was like, "I don't understand why people don't have what you teach. Why do none of these people have any exposure to these things you teach?" And what he was talking about was values based, what are some different strategies to create community, to have connection, other than hang out at parties and get drunk,
Hmm.
like, and so we started talking more and more. I hadn't taught him NVC. I had modeled the language for him, but once I started talking to him about the ways I was teaching it in the elementary classroom and the ways I had taught it in practice groups at St. Paul's or in other settings, and I started sharing with him, the worksheets that I had developed, he said, "We need to make this more appealing to my age group." And he didn't say it that nicely. And I love to quote him because sometimes you need to be this direct. But he said, "Mom, your lame PDFs are not going to cut it. We need to jazz this up." And so at that time, um, we started talking about repackaging and reformatting these practices to make them more accessible, more beautiful. And at the same time, um, or around that time, is when the pandemic hit and everybody went into isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, we were calling ourselves Practice Houston. We
Hmm.
had kept a group going, to do these different practices together and to come together, you know, at times it was every couple of months, at times it was once a month, but we were kind of stringing our group for our own benefit as well as others, and calling ourselves Practice Houston. And then when the pandemic hit, we we took it online and we started posting our groups on Eventbrite, and we attracted more people from outside the United States than within. And that's when
Wow.
and it wasn't like it was a huge group. It was just a handful of people across the planet and a handful of people
But
in
still,
Houston.
you got
Yeah.
people to come. That's awesome.
Yeah. And so as we looked at packaging our content and creating a business together around it, we decided that we wanted to come up with a name, other than Practice Houston, that was a bit more global. And after many iterations and a lot of brainstorming sessions, we landed on We Practice Life. And each one of those words means something to us. The we is the belonging, it's the connection, it's the community of people focused on improving their lives. The practice is, it's not about perfection, it's not about getting there. It's about constantly being open to change and improvement. And the only way you can't read yourself, like we came up with so much language. And one of the things, Tamika Evans, who was has been a really important advisor for us, who I also met through NVC practice groups. It's your house, by the way. She came up with this line, we're not gonna read our way out of this. And we're really talking about, not wanting to participate in the things that separate and isolate and distract us. We're not going to read our way out of it. We're going to practice our way out of it. And we're going to do that together. And it's not just one thing, it's our whole life. And so that's a really long answer to your question,
But hey,
but
you know
there's
what?
so much behind the name.
Right.
Uh-huh.
But here's the other thing. It's that shift from me-ness to we-ness. And that's what this is about. This is not about everything is about me. You're learning these different types of skills in a way that helps you with your we-ness, So I love We Practice Life. I keep trying to get all my clients to go to it. So, I just think it's
Yeah.
another way to have a community that
That people want.
that people want.
And people need.
Yeah, not about
Yeah.
shaming you about getting into being sober, but to kind of here's some skills and tools that you didn't get through your education. So here's another way to do it. So
Yeah. And the so much of, I think this is one of the reasons why nonviolent communication or compassionate communication, or I call it values-based living, is that foundationally it starts with our shared human needs and values, and that the reward for making good choices is that our needs are met or our values are supported. So there's none of this outside motivation. It comes from within. And we can see it that we can all win. Like if we engage our creativity enough, it's not competitive. It's how creative can we be so that everybody gets their needs met. And it seems to be, unfortunately, so countercultural for us to think that way, that it's not a competition. There's no villain and no victim. It's everybody can win. And yeah, so that's also why I think the whole, like, everything fits when it talks about, practicing your life. Everything fits.
So you kind of you made these packets up for people to kind of help them do this thing called We Practice. So share a little bit about kind of what those things, the packets that you have people to to use in your practice group?
Yeah, so after Chase informed me that my lame PDFs weren't going to work,
Mm-hmm.
he developed a beautiful template that would fit on cards that are, I think they're 4 by 6 cards. So, not too different from a larger index card, um, which which forced me to be more succinct in my language,
Mm-hmm.
right? I had to fit it on a 4 by 6 instead of a 8.5 by 11. And the timing was great because I was teaching in elementary schools, and I started realizing that what we use as the needs wheel and the feelings wheel were simply word banks, for people to use with their worksheets.
Mm-hmm.
And so what started happening is, once Chase made the templates, I started going through all the lesson plans that I had made to teach in the art classroom and the creative writing classroom, and um, all of the worksheets that I had used with parents in parenting workshops, and all of the handouts I had given in spiritual practice retreats. And I realized I had this huge library of practices that would fit that.
So give an example
And
of one.
sure, um, so okay, I'll give one that's one of my favorites, specific gratitude, which I learned from Robert Gonzalez,
Mm-hmm.
at a workshop that he gave. But I distilled it down to like 4 steps, I think it is. It's like 4 sentence stems and the needs wheel as the word bank. So you identify an action, and I'm going to use myself just because, um, I have the most control over my own actions. Um, an action that I took that made me really happy that day. Um, when I decided to take a warm bubble bath,
Mm.
and the next line is, it met my needs for fill in the blank. It met my needs for relaxation, ease, peace, harmony, calm, rest, right? Um, and that's actually just 2 lines. So, I think specific gratitude is one of the simplest ones.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I use that in the elementary classroom on Teacher Appreciation Week. So we had a big poster with all the needs,
Mm.
all the needs on it. And I invited the students to name something their teacher did for them, and then name the values or the needs of theirs that it supported.
Oh.
So they wrote thank you notes to their
Mm-hmm.
teachers using specific gratitude. So these thank you notes didn't sound like, you're the best teacher, period, or I love that you're my teacher. They sounded like, when you took the time to notice I needed help with my math and came to work with me one on one, it met my needs for confidence, being seen, being heard.
But there
It's
wasn't a
amazing.
dry eye there at all.
No, the kids were so like,
Yeah.
they started giving me examples of ways they
Mm-hmm.
could do this with their parents and their
Oh,
siblings.
wonderful.
Like, when you
Oh,
included me on the
Yeah.
playground, it met my, like,
Yeah.
they just started firing off.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 2 sentence stems and a word bank.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the kind of values-based living, nonviolent communication basics pack,
Mm-hmm.
right? So all my favorite practices, from beginning to incorporate the wisdom of compassionate communication, the wisdom of these shared values, those practices are packaged together in a pack of cards.
I think I
Um,
bought one from you before.
You have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And
Do you still sell them?
yes.
Oh, good.
Yes.
We'll make sure we get all your places where you can sell that at the end. So,
Yeah, awesome. And so because I'm a mom of three and Chase is my oldest and we have two at home still. I once I realized that I was sitting on this huge library of potential practice cards. I rented a house in my own neighborhood to give myself a writing retreat. And I spent the weekend converting 85 practices to Chase's template.
wow.
And
Jeez.
I know.
most of the work had already been done because over the course of 10 years,
Hmm.
I had developed all these writing prompts, all these art prompts, all these spiritual practices, integrating nonviolent communication and different things. And it met so many of my needs to take that weekend
Mm.
and do that I was energized. It sounds like it would be draining, but it was meeting so many of my needs. I just kept cranking them out. And then I could see where, oh, I could put these practices together and this could be a family retreat pack, right? So it
Mm.
came some of the basics and then some of the parenting workshop worksheets, and some of the play prompts. Those went together as the family retreat. And
Mm.
then some of the personality type, Enneagram type stuff with some of the spiritual practices, those went together as the spirituality retreat. And there are duplicates in there because it's really about what's the purpose? What is it that somebody wants to get out of this deck? And that drove like what
Mm.
combination of cards go in it. So
Mm.
we have 10 decks now.
Wow.
I think we started out pretty naturally with like 6 decks
Hmm.
just that weekend.
Mm.
Um,
What
but yeah,
I mean, what a
that's what the
great way
packs
to
are.
begin a good group, or helping people with having some really good ways of kind of fleshing out kind of what they're learning about. So you said you talked a little bit about play. Do you said, kind of what role does that creative expression play in your approach to maybe your own personal growth or your emotional well-being? How do you I like to use my what I call morning play. So,
Yeah, and I love your morning play, Kelly.
yeah.
I do. I think the more I think about creativity and play being part of this, the more I think that, one of for me, and probably I'm not alone in this, is that the frustrated, stuck kind of person inside of me is my inner child.
Hmm.
And my inner child is longing for play and a fresh way of
Hmm.
looking at something. And so it makes sense to me that the playful aspect that we've created in our community,
Hmm.
um, is the invitation to give our inner child what it wants,
Hmm.
and play and create the kind of life we're longing for. Because the other way that's always comparing and judging and having these expectations and getting stuck in our head, that's what we need a break from.
Well, one
And
of
if we
your
want to do
plays that
something
y'all,
new,
yeah, one of your plays that you do is the blackout poetry that I like. Tell a little bit more about the blackout poetry.
yeah, yeah. I think there are some cards that show up in almost every deck, and
Hmm.
blackout poetry is one of them. So, um, what blackout poetry does is, you start with a page full of text.
Hmm.
So instead of trying to write on a blank page, you're
Hmm.
starting with somebody else's words already on the page.
Hmm.
And what you're doing um, is scanning the words and finding which words and phrases are standing out to you in that moment. And you want to connect with your heart, not your head.
Hmm.
So this is like an invitation to not overthink it. And the way that I do it anyway, it's really about letting your heart find the words rather than your head.
Mm-hmm.
I know that like poets and writers have been using blackout poetry a long
Mm-hmm.
time before I ever discovered it,
Mm-hmm.
but I like to use it more as a heart practice or a soul
Mm-hmm.
practice. And then oftentimes those words that your heart really connected with hold another meaning for you.
Mm-hmm.
It may be completely different than what's on the page and what the author intended, but it's a message from your heart. And then the invitation is for you to work with that message and literally redact or black out everything on the page that does not support that message.
Right.
And then you can keep working with it in with art materials or journaling, something to allow you to just go deeper with
Mm-hmm.
what your heart wants you to spend some time with.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me just make sure. So you can get a book that you don't want anybody else to play or read with. You can just find you can find a book, I don't know, from a I guess a resale shop or anything like that, or those little libraries that they have in neighborhoods,
Yeah, yeah.
and you can tear pages out and can use it that way, right? Just kind of,
That's right.
yeah. Don't
And
don't use your parents or anybody else's nice, books that you just want to.
however,
Right.
you can take a photo.
Oh, that's right. You can do that
You
too.
can take a
Yeah.
photo of a
Yeah.
book and
Or
you
Xerox it.
can
Yeah.
yeah, you could print it out
Okay.
or you could do it digitally,
Yeah.
which I put a little video on YouTube up recently
Hmm.
to show people how to use just the photo app
Right.
on your phone
Hmm.
to mark out the words.
Oh, okay.
Um, so it's really accessible when you think about it.
Hmm.
Almost everybody has some sort of photo app on their
Hmm.
phone.
Mm-hmm.
And if you zoom in far enough, you actually might have a little bit of control over what you're blacking out with your
Hmm.
finger.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah.
So then that really gets
And
people to connect with what they share their poetry and share that little bit of creativity with each other in the practice group.
yeah.
Yeah.
And often I think we get to connection and belonging pretty quickly
Hmm.
because the messages our hearts are longing for
Hmm.
often have a similar vibe or feel, something that we relate to and can have empathy or compassion around. So, our heads may think differently, but our hearts tend to get each other. And so it is a really fun way for us to orient to our own hearts and then have our hearts speak to each other's.
It's great.
Very cool. So, Kelly, are you going to ask another question?
No, it's your turn.
Oh, it's my turn?
Yeah, we're going to start with numbers
Okay.
5 there.
What?
Yeah, we got through all of those.
We
'Cause
did?
we did.
Okay, yeah, she was asking questions different ways. And
I was
I'm
asking
I
them
don't see
different
where that
ways,
is.
right.
Okay. You emphasize psychological safety and compassion in group settings.
Mm-hmm.
How do you cultivate that atmosphere in your circles?
Okay, so I take this very seriously. Um, I, I, my personality type is such that I, I have to listen really closely to my inner voice and trust it. And so I go totally mama bear on creating a space where everybody's still small voice has value and it's important to have space for that. And so during the pandemic, I got to volunteer for Healing Circles Global, and they have a wonderful structure for creating safe space. They have circles for that meet for all kinds of purposes, but the common thread is listening with intention, and they have rules about confidentiality. They have this structure that's based on the Quaker traditions of holding circles for all sorts
Is
of
this the healing
reasons.
circle?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, this is healing circles. And so we practice life adopted their healing circles agreements and
Mm-hmm.
added one. And so I think any kind of circle where we're going to be vulnerable requires really clear boundaries about that. Um, and so if you all have time, I'm just going to read them. Can
Absolutely.
I do that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's fine.
And we read them in every circle. It doesn't
Hmm.
matter if it's a closed circle that's been meeting for a long time. We are humans and we
Mm-hmm.
have this tendency sometimes to go outside of these boundaries. And so we read them every time and I'll go through them. The last one is the one that we practice life added, but the rest of them are all straight from Healing Circles Global. We treat each other with kindness and respect. We listen with attention and compassion. We honor each other's path and don't presume to advise, fix, or save each other. We hold all stories shared in our private groups, programs, and circles confidential. We trust each of us has the guidance we need within us, and we use the power of silence and practice to access it. We believe that growth and transformation are difficult and can also be fun. So we did add a few words to a few of those.
So the last one you
Um,
just shared what was that last one that y'all added?
we believe that growth and transformation are difficult and can also be fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad y'all
Yeah.
added that one.
Yeah.
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 And the part about the power of silence to access our own inner wisdom, I usually add on a bit of a note to help people understand how to model that.
Mm-hmm.
When we share around a circle, like if it's a blackout poetry circle, or if it's any kind of circle, and we want to give each participant a chance to share, we're not going to force them to share. But if they do decide to share, what comes with the offer is also an extra 30 seconds to a minute to think about what wants to be shared.
Hmm.
And by adding that into their allotted time, we're asking them not to think ahead while everybody else is talking. Do that part of going inside and discerning what you want to share and if you want to share or not in that moment so that all of the other moments you're giving 100% of your attention to whoever's speaking.
Yep.
And there is so much deep connection that happens because of that little invitation.
Hmm. Because everybody's listening.
Well, you set it up at the beginning, so it's kind of a nice way to say you don't have to think about what you're going to say, but here's a way to be present with each other, right? Wonderful.
Yeah. Because even if we set up space where the reason we're coming together is to listen to each other, we are so
Mm-hmm.
conditioned to think about a smart thing to say
Hmm.
that we have to set up some new rules in that circle to help us listen better and really hear each other.
Well, just from my perspective, a lot of people haven't been listened to very well in a long time. So.
Hmm.
And that,
Yeah.
honestly, that's
Mm-hmm.
the power of
Mm-hmm.
these practice groups and
Mm-hmm.
circles to me is that you could, and that's really what happens in healing circles, you could remove all of the practice and the content and everything and just hold space to listen to each other and
Mm-hmm.
lives will change.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, for me, it's one of the most important things we offer ourselves and each other, and one
Mm-hmm.
of the things we do the least.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And I think for me, I also learned in my work, I got to work through writers in the schools. I got to work in hospital settings and museum settings, and that's where um, the gallery pack came from. It's from like, different prompts for that. But I learned about this concept of the third object. And that's what the practice cards are. It's like you have two people and you have a third object. And just like a prompt or a question or reflecting on a poem or something, it opens us up. And then suddenly the two people can connect by having this other object that they're both, responding to or reflecting on from the heart. And then you end up with two hearts that are deeply connected.
Right. Because people are being honest and open.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I love We Practice Life. Everything about it. So it's your turn, Kelly.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I guess, being in a practice group, I mean, it's really wonderful to see when someone gets something, I'm sure that you've been witness to some of those. I guess what are some of the kind of the common breakthroughs that you witness from people when they get it?
Some common breakthroughs are, one, people are surprised by where they have choice and where they don't. Like realizing that just because all their life they've grown up, they should be doing a certain thing, that they actually don't have to. Whatever that is. And it could be a whole career. It could be the majority of the way they spend their lives. And all of a sudden they have this, oh my gosh, I could make a different choice. And then, it's that, I guess that's the thing that I enjoy the most, is that people see that they have more power than they think they do. They have more creativity than they think they do. Those are just so fun to witness. I feel like if I have an addiction, it's to that. Seeing someone see that they're they have the steering wheel of their life in their hands. Just because they've been taking the same road doesn't mean they have to keep doing that. And then just kind of watching them advocate for their own needs. And that's probably, there's big choices that shift and there's little choices that shift, but I think that's the most common one. That and also people just being awake to different ideas, the creativity that comes with it, the invitation to play, like freeing themselves from their own thoughts and beliefs.
One word that kind of
can't. Yeah.
One of the words that gets me is that word, I can't.
Yeah.
I think, that's the one. I think when I hear that from somebody, my little therapist hat turns on. And it's like, curious. Why can't you? Tell me more about it.
Yeah, and it's peeling back those layers of beliefs and thoughts that have people feel so stuck. And I think,
but they don't even know they have choice. They're not even aware that they have choice, right?
Yeah, I didn't until my life blew up and I found nonviolent communication, and that was my big aha. I was like, hold on a second, I have needs. I have choice. Like, I don't have to do it this way, So I think that's why that nonviolent communication is so foundational to all of these practices, is because it completely shifted that, like, all the have to, can't. It makes you aware of how often you do that to yourself.
So creating that awareness is I guess maybe the first place to start is, being aware, being conscious.
Yeah.
about how all of these things might have played a role.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of the practice word in We Practice Life is right. We didn't come up with those overnight.
No, right.
It took us decades. It took us a whole, maybe feels like a whole lifetime to stack all those shoulds and have tos and can'ts. We're gonna have to practice getting rid of them.
Mm-hmm. Practice living
And we're
without
very
them.
motivated to do that once it starts happening because the liberation is invigorating. But
Mm-hmm.
getting started is pretty daunting, especially if we're super stuck. If we're
Mm-hmm.
really upset, we have a life we want to try to numb ourselves from or escape from. We probably have some pretty embedded layers that need shedding.
Mm-hmm.
And it's dark, it's hard to see those.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another reason why you need a safe place where there's other people trying to do the same thing,
To bounce
because
off of.
that's scary. It can be scary.
Mm-hmm.
At least it was for me. It was scary. I couldn't really, turn on a dime. I needed to see a little glimpse of hope, find something that worked. Um, but that's what practice will do for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, doing shadow work is not easy. That's another word for all
Hmm.
the things that we carry around that don't serve us any longer or haven't been serving us for years, but we were too blind to see it because we were so stuck in it. You know, that's that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And it's not like they cease to have control over your life if you don't know they're there. They're still making a lot of decisions. You just don't realize it until you start looking at them,
Right,
shining a light on them.
exactly. Yeah, because you best believe they're having an impact on your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so easy to project those onto others.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're outside of your control because then you're looking at
You
giving
made me
up your
do
power to
this.
everybody else, right? Made me feel this way, made me do
Mm-hmm.
this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like I didn't make you do anything. Those are your choices. But that's a hard truth to hear.
Yeah. I want to share with you all something that's really funny. Eric and I, my husband Eric and I have been married. Okay, I shouldn't have to do the math, but I think it's 29 years.
Wow.
20. Oh my gosh, I think it's 30. I don't know. We've been together 30 years. We've been together since 95. Um, but we have this thing because we've been through so many ups and downs. You're so many things change, and I'm so grateful that at some point, I realized he could see beyond my shadow. Like he knew my shadow was not me.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that saved my life. Like he knew me well enough to see my shadow is different from me.
Share what you mean by shadow.
So, um, I I'll say there were some behaviors, some
Mm-hmm.
actions that I took that were really driven by my rebellious inner child,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And instead of instead of seeing me as a bad person,
Mm-hmm.
he saw the actions separately from who I was. Kind of like you want parents to do, right? Like your
Mm-hmm.
kids are
Mm-hmm.
not the the mistake they made.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
They were responding to something and they didn't have the tools or the choices. They couldn't see the right thing to do or the thing that would make, everybody happier instead of
Mm-hmm.
blow up each other's lives. Um, and because of that, I think because he could see me, we could each look at what we wanted. We could see that where we were was not where we wanted to be. How I was showing up was not how I wanted to show up. And then it put us in this growth mindset, right? It put us in that mindset, Kelly, that you talk about so
Mm-hmm.
often.
Mm-hmm.
And now this iteration of us in this stage of our lives, when projections or my shadow shows up, I do a pattern, it's not fun to be around. eh, he has he has this playful way of calling me out that does not make me go ballistic and angry.
Mm-hmm.
It's so clear to me that it's a shadow or a projection that we have this I have this really funny response. I think it's hilarious that I came up with, which is stop knowing me so well.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a gift,
Mm-hmm.
because immediately we could be playful
Mm-hmm.
and I can explore like how do I want to show up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um yeah.
Hmm.
That's wonderful.
And I think that's something that can also show up in practice communities, right? Like if we stick together long enough through this, and maybe what folks who have left churches are missing out on, I'm talking about myself here too. Like we practice life is my spiritual community.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a church community. I think one of the reasons why you want to stick it out and not just leave when it gets tough is because people do begin to know your heart and your spirit and who you are, separate from the way your human showing up or your inner child is showing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to occupy spaces where I feel safe enough for folks to get to know me at that level. And we can be playful about the toughest parts about growing up as humans.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. So, every time I look over at her, she's just staring at the screen, smiling. Um,
Your turn.
yeah, well, I know. She keeps throwing it back on me, so I guess I'm going to ask the next one.
Mm-hmm.
How do you integrate frameworks like nonviolent communication or self-empathy into your courses? Because she offers courses through We Practice Life as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, it's hard for me to pull it out now. Like it's embedded in everything
Mm-hmm.
because to me, I usually start with some sort of graphic or diagram to illustrate our human responses to stimulus, to
Mm-hmm.
things that, you hear the word trigger a lot, but things that affect us, that going on around us that we have no control over.
Like toxic.
Yeah, yeah. Toxic environments, toxic
Mm-hmm.
relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And I often use an example of the highway, road rage. Most people are very familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I use the concepts of nonviolent communication to show us what's possible in moments like that, and to also use mindfulness and explain the physiology and our nervous systems and our lizard brain and all of these things. I start out with that no matter if I'm doing a parenting workshop or I'm trying to give some life skills to second graders to prepare them for standardized tests. Like it's embedded in everything. Um, to help them understand their feelings as indicators
Mm-hmm.
and their needs and their choices. So, yeah, it's kind of like that old spaghetti sauce commercial, Ragu. Like when it comes to nonviolent communication, if you're holding one of our cards in your hands, NVC is in there,
It's in the
it's in
sauce.
there. Yeah, it's in the sauce. And it's really, to me, it's really about reorienting us to what's possible, to abundance and
Mm-hmm.
compassion.
Well,
So, yeah.
very cool. Um, well, let's see. What does belonging look like inside We Practice Life circles? I like that question.
Yeah.
Because we're all about belonging here.
Nah.
I think that what I just said about nonviolent communication orienting towards our shared human needs, when we see that we all have these shared human needs, no matter what part of the globe we were born on, or what family we were born into, or what resources we were born into, like if we truly see that we all have these needs and values, and that in a perfect world, we'd all have access to every strategy we would use to get those needs met.
Mm-hmm.
We all belong to one human family. It starts with that. Like belonging is the basis of all of it. No one's on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
There
Our
is
world
no
didn't come
not
with
belong.
lines.
Yeah.
Right, right. There are no
Yeah.
There's no
lines
lines.
dividing countries.
Right.
Yeah. And so the more we practice, the more we're participating in
Mm-hmm.
this universal belonging.
Mm.
Yeah, I love that.
And we get to choose it, right? Like we choose behaviors, we choose actions, we choose words, we choose how we want to frame our thoughts about people. We have to intercept all the thoughts and expectations and biases and prejudices that we've layered on
Mm-hmm.
top.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
gotta we gotta fact check those
Right.
because they go against this human belonging, this shared, this human family that all belongs. And it's our individual work
Mm-hmm.
to fact check those thoughts and assumptions and biases. If we want to participate in a global family, the only person's thoughts and assumptions we could poke holes in and shine light on is our own.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, we're about almost to the end of our
Hmm.
interview here, but I just want to make sure, are you still have some time to finish up? I
I'm
just want
good. Yeah.
a big,
Yeah.
Why don't we skip
I'm going
down
to do down to the
11
or 12,
or
right?
12?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll combine them.
Okay.
So, anyway, I appreciate you sharing about We Practice Life, and and I know that are there groups that are still meeting that still do the We Practice Life?
Yeah, I host
Mm-hmm.
a blackout
Poetry.
poetry
Oh,
group
good,
once a month on the
good,
first Friday of each month,
good.
and it's free. There's no charge.
Uh-huh.
It's online, so people can join from wherever. And it's on the first Friday of every month at noon.
Oh, awesome.
Right, and it's on Event Space, yeah.
Eventbrite, yeah,
Eventbrite.
Eventbrite, right,
Okay,
right.
good.
yeah.
So when it's great that we have the We Practice Life and we have these tools that we have like NVC skills. For you, kind of specifically, what do you usually turn to when life gets kind of feeling chaotic or uncertain? What do you like to do to kind of help restore you?
Yeah. So, um, I have I have a handful of go-tos,
Mm-hmm.
my go-to practices. Recently I learned a set of vagus nerve exercises
Mm-hmm.
just to get my body back to normal
Mm-hmm.
physiologically,
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't matter how many practices I have in my library. If my lizard brain is trying to fight a cheetah, I
Mm-hmm.
will not be able to do the other practices.
Mm-hmm.
So, so I make this V around my ear and I just gently move the V down along my neck and breathe. I call this my Highway 610 or Interstate 59 or 45. That's my practice.
Mm-hmm.
And it can, keep my big brain, my prefrontal cortex online so that I can access the other practices if I need them
Mm-hmm.
in that moment. Um, and often I like to connect with the thought that I'm having when something really upsets me, because that's my light on my dashboard that tells me there's probably a
Bang,
core
bang,
belief.
bang.
Yeah, there's a limiting
Mhm.
belief or a core belief. There's a should,
Mhm.
there's a have to,
Mhm.
there's something underneath there.
Yeah.
And um, I like to give credit where credit's due. I'm telling myself practice, my version of it comes from about four other teachers' versions of it. So,
Mhm.
and they use the same or similar names. So I'm just going to rattle them off. Robert Gonzalez,
Mhm.
Cindy Wigglesworth,
Mhm.
Brene Brown, they all
Mhm.
have this practice and others too.
Mhm.
Um, and I kind of created a way that works for me that's really quick. I connect with the thought that I'm having, and in front of it, I'm telling myself. So, highway example, I'm telling myself that big white pickup trucks are trying to smash little blue Priuses. That's a frequent highway problem I have.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then behind the thought, that thought that's just full of assumptions and judgments, behind it, I say that may or may not be true. And that allows my brain to be open to other possibilities and
Mhm.
not be attached and not create this confirmation bias where now I'm watching for white pickup trucks and keeping a score sheet of every mistake they've made, right? Like I stop that
Right. So
and
you
make
know
myself
when you
open.
get triggered, or you know when something's happening, so you're aware of those things. And then you have made this kind of a deal with yourself that I'm going to do this scare for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that
Yeah.
I'm investigating it a little bit, and then I'm going
Yeah.
to create this choice that I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that may be, level two or level three,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
level one is the vagus nerve. Like, let's just reset our bodies first, right? Level two is, I learned this from nonviolent communication, is emergency self-empathy,
Right.
where I'm just going to name the needs and values right now that I really want to get met that are not getting met by this pickup
Mm-hmm.
truck not letting
Mm-hmm.
me merge onto the freeway,
Mm-hmm.
which in that moment, it could be different at different times, but often it's respect, safety, being seen,
Be
you
seen.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so just by stating that, it's validating my feelings without me escalating the thoughts and assumptions and the anger that comes from having your safety not be met
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and blaming someone else, for that. Um, so those are some big ones. I have another one where I love to just go into what's inside my control and what's outside my control.
Mm-hmm. That's the little
Um,
hand we draw.
yeah,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
That's a fun one to do. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Hmm.
It's one of my favorites.
Well, you got the last question, my dear.
Okay, we're looking ahead. What's next for We Practice Life? And how can people get involved or support your mission?
Um, I'm full time here at the Jung Center as the director of curriculum, and We Practice Life has been growing by word of mouth. So we've been doing team trainings, and using these practice packs, and getting to familiarize folks with nonviolent communication and crucial conversations and getting things done and all these kinds of things that I plucked from different self-help books and whatnot. And so that area is growing. And I've been working with clients one-on-one to help them in their stuck places. Um, and That's happening. And what I'd like to do, when you all asked me earlier, how is We Practice Life practice groups working? I'd like to add a more general practice group where we meet online, but we don't just do blackout poetry. Maybe each month we try a different practice.
Great. If you want to plug if you have any
Your
websites
website.
or
Yeah.
If you're on
Yeah.
social media,
And we'll put it in the description.
we'll put it in
too.
there. But just go ahead and share it because somebody might
Okay.
hear it as well.
Yeah. So the website is hopefully pretty easy to remember. It's wepracticelife.com. And there are tabs for our trainings, our products, which is the practice packs. So that's a good place to just go to the website and find out more about those. And I had another thought. Oh, I also am really excited that a friend of mine is an illustrator, and I feel like our illustrations about the way we see each other and the basics of nonviolent communication, um, those basics are getting illustrated. Um, and my daughter wants to animate them
Oh,
with
good.
me. So I feel like there's going to be a little series of cartoon animations
Oh, wonderful.
demonstrating these things. Yeah, not there yet, but I think that's
Mm-hmm.
an exciting development.
That sounds like fun. Very cool. Well, thank you very much, Brooke. I think we have come to the end of our. Well, we're now at an hour, so yeah.
Wow.
Um,
But I just want to
Wow.
say thank you for coming on here and sharing about We Practice Life and the tools and skills you've made over these years and the wonderful way you've shared it with your family and with so many other people. And just really being willing to incorporate or look at anything that kind of goes around the world and kind of helping people understand how to belong with each other or how to work on, I guess, creating that physical and emotional and psychological safety for each other's time that they're getting to do that with you. So it's wonderful to
Yeah.
hear it, and we're grateful to be our second interview. So. And
Thank
we have
you.
some other questions to ask you, but it'll be off the.
It'll be
Yeah.
after.
It'll be
this.
after, right?
Yeah.
So-
Well, let me just say thank you back to you guys. And I love being play partners with both of you all over the years and in these specific ways. And also I just want to share while we are still recording that um, I want to live in a world where more of us have access to belonging and
Right,
compassion. And in
right.
some ways, it's not, um, it's, I don't want to call it selfish because that's not what we teach. It's um, my hope and my inspiration and my energy all come from a vision that more of us have access to this. And I
We're
just
just
want
about
to do my
spreading it, right?
part
Right.
to
We
make
have
it
to do right.
happen.
We're doing
Yeah.
our part to spread it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
Because that's the world I want to live in. And
Mhm.
so I'm energized to do what works towards that vision.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. Thank you for being part of my life,
Yes.
Brooke.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, now we are on our way out. So
All right.
thank you all very
Thank you
much for
for
attending
coming. Yeah.
today. See y'all next week.
Thanks for listening to Blueprints for Belonging. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow. Leave a 5-star rating for us and share it with a friend.
You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you like to listen. Your support helps us keep building conscious connection in this disconnected world.